Welcome. Today we're going to talk about how to do some pre-planning before we start a project for manufacturing for turning in Fusion. Stick around. I hope you find this enlightening. So for pre-planning, there are 4 key pieces of information we need to collect before we ever start Fusion. These are things that we need to either have on hand or know about before the project can be successful. So the very first thing is we need to know about our machine, what machine we're going to be using. We need to know about the stock that's going to be used to cut the part. We need to understand what work offset is going to be used. And then lastly, what kind of tools we're going to need to manufacture the part. So all this information needs to be collected before we get into Fusion, before we write the code, and before any machining will get done. So for the machine, at least at our shop, we have 2 different CNC turning centers. We have the TL1 and the ST10. By and large, in this class, I'm going to just kind of tell you what machine you're using, but there are distinct advantages and disadvantages for the 2 machines. So the TL1 has a much wider range of material we can hold on to, anywhere from 1/8 to about 10 inches, and it can be as long as 36 inches. Its limitations are we don't run coolant on it because it's an open machine, and that it only has a 4 tool changer. So those are the 2 major drawbacks. The ST10 has very limited size stock we can fit into it, 1/2 inch, 3/4, 1, 1 1/4, 1 1/2, and 2. It has a 12 tool changer, so we have a lot more tool options. We are running coolant, so we can be more aggressive with our cuts, but we don't have a tail stock, so we are very limited on how much material can stick out of the machine, up to maybe 6 inches, depending on what size diameter we're turning. So for the example we're going to be doing today, we're going to be working with the TL1. Second, we need to talk about stock. There's 2 basic major factors with the stock that we need to know. We need to know what's the material the stock is made out of. In this case, it's made of aluminum 6061. And we need to know the maximum diameter of our part, because that's going to edict how big our stock has to be. And in this case, it's 1.9. So with those 2 pieces of information, we can then go into a catalog where stock is ordered from. We use Coast Aluminum. And if we look through their catalog, 2 inch, which is the next size larger from 1.9, is 2R61, and this is the size stock we're going to use in this project. And of course, this is from the Aluminum 6061 page. There's also a book in my classroom if you want to look this up the old-fashioned way. So to summarize right now, we're using the TL1 machine. We're cutting it on aluminum 6061, and the diameter of the stock is going to be 2 inches. Our next question has to do with work coordinate system, which is where the offset is. And this really, in a lathe, at least in our shop, has to do with how far the stock is going to be outside of the chuck. So as you see in the picture here, we're going to measure from the chuck face to the end of the stock. And the way our machines are set up, and this applies to both the TL1 and the ST10, is it starts at G54 at 2 inches from the chuck face, and then goes in half-inch increments until we reach 4 inches at G58. And then for those occasions where we need to be a little bit closer to the chuck, we have G59, which is 1.5 inches. Our part here is 2.6 inches long. Obviously, we can't be right up next to the chuck, so we need a little bit of gap. So the next size beyond 2.6 is 3, or G56. So to bring it all back around, the TL1, aluminum 6061, we're using a 2-inch diameter material, and the work coordinate system we're using is G56. Last thing we need to talk about is tools. There are basically 2 ways to have tools in Fusion. We can either use a tool library because we already created the tools, or we need to create each individual tool on its own. And then those tools are obviously assigned to certain locations on the turret. In this example, we're going to use the tool library. So in another video, I'm going to show you how to upload that. But you can also build the tools from scratch. And if you're going to do that, you're going to need 2 things on hand. You need the insert box, and you need the physical tool holder. The CNMG120408mm is going to be the numbers that Fusion's looking for the insert, and then the holder, they're going to ask you questions like, what's its height and width, is it a left, right, or neutral, and a few other factors that will come either from numbers on the holder, the box the holder came in, or you can always physically measure it with a pair of calipers. So looking at our part, we only need one tool to create this part, a general facing turning tool, because the part starts on the right hand side as a relatively small and only gets bigger. That means with this tool should be able to cut all the features we need, and this tool is already loaded in our TL1 tool library, so we don't need to go through the process of creating a tool. There will be a later video in the series that will teach you how to create tools in Fusion for turning, but not right now. So our next step is we're going to go off and we're going to fill in our pre-worksheet plan, and we're basically going to record this information down: the TL1, the aluminum 6061, the stock diameter, the work coordinate system, and the tool library we're going to use, because we're going to need this information when we start to set up both the chuck in Fusion as well as the next worksheet, which is the setup worksheet. In the next video, I'm going to cover how to assemble the chuck with the part in Fusion so we can get some sort of simulation, as well as following videos will cover the setup and the process of creating the code. Thanks for watching. Please hit like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.